Hello everyone, my name is Alicia Jackson. I'm a licensed professional counselor. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. Today we're going to talk about how trauma, specifically childhood trauma, affects how you see you. And this one is a heavy video. So I want to preface this by saying, especially for the rest of the trauma videos that I am doing in this series, to taking the information from a space of compassion. And I know that's going to be a little challenging, but taking the information in a space of compassion, and I'll tell you what that looks like. And taking this information not in the space of, see, I knew this is what was wrong with me, or this is what I was talking about. This is why I am the way that I am, right? Not as evidence to further the script that something is wrong with you, right? But to take in some compassion to say, wow, what I experienced was so impactful and distressing that I really need to love on myself. Okay? I really need to love on myself to get me where I need to be. Okay? So I don't usually tell people, specifically grown people, what to do, because grown people, we are very opinionated, and we don't like to be told what to do. We like, hey, I'm gonna do what I want to do. We have those rebel parts, what I call them. So it's fine. I don't want to tell you what to do, and at the same time I want this to be an experience for you watching this video that is not reinforcing the negative script in your mind about your experiences. Okay, so I hope you hear it, and I'll submit it to you as a suggestion. Okay, so as we talked about, I have a previous video that lists the 3 ways that trauma affects you, and how you see yourself is one of them. And we're going to talk a little bit about that, specifically because it truly kind of shapes everything. It shapes everything. So in that video, I talked about how when we experience pain, which is definitely trauma is very painful, right? It's usually unwitnessed pain, which is even more traumatizing. Pain needs to be witnessed. Okay, we need it validated, and I know there's a lot of opinions about validation, and my opinion, clinically, see I got a little neck action. My opinion is that validation is needed, period. And so especially in the space of trauma, and so oftentimes unwitnessed pain, and you're experiencing this as a child, you are truly looking at this from a viewpoint of a child, which is saying, like, this is happening to me, it must be me. And you think about it, children, they don't have the complexity of saying, okay, my mom, she wasn't loved by her mother, and she had her father wasn't in her life, so she picks men that physically abuse her because that's what her mother picked. And the children don't have they don't have all that information. They just know, I'm experiencing trauma, and how do I protect myself, and I must be doing something wrong to receive this treatment. Okay, they don't have the full story at the time. And so oftentimes those where we receive that trauma, that's where our mind is I won't say stuck, but where our pain, we experience it, where it sits in those spaces where we experience the pain. Okay, and so all that shame and comparison, because truly comparison is attached to shame, And so when you're comparing yourself as a child, as a teenager, as a young adult who's experienced childhood trauma, you're seeing your peers excelling far, far, ahead of you, and you are kind of in this space where you are maybe doing well, navigating well, but just not as well as your peers. Okay, you think about it. Trauma grows you up. It grows you up in areas of protection, right? And taking that responsibility of protection, of survival, okay? When children do not experience trauma, when children have a space that is loving and nurturing, and they can grow, they can discover, they can use their imagination, they can explore themselves in a healthy environment, explore their hobbies, they flourish much more than children who have experienced trauma as a child. Not saying that children who experience trauma or not saying that children who experience trauma do not flourish. It's just different. It is different. And especially if no one is coming in, say a grandmother or a foster parent or adoptive parent or uncle, or someone's coming in to provide that safe space for them to flourish, it is difficult because they're in that fight, flight, freeze mode. Okay, so they aren't curious about the world in a way that's like, ooh, what's out there? Let me explore, right? They are saying to themselves, ooh, the world is dangerous. Let me scale back and protect myself, okay? And so oftentimes children who are experiencing trauma are comparing themselves to others who had completely different environments and blaming themselves for not being in the space where their peers are who didn't have an experience trauma. They're growing, they're glowing, they had the foundation to do so. Children who experience trauma often struggle in the areas of confidence, clarity, and calm, which are a part of some of the C's of the self-energy of IFS. If you haven't watched my IFS video, take a look at that. But these are what I find in my work with individuals are core pieces to helping people find themselves, become rooted in themselves, have their voice, have their agency to navigate the world confidently, and not feel like they have to compromise themselves in relationships or in spaces, because they have a clear understanding of who they are that has been defined to them and by the love that they received from their environment, whatever that might be, okay? And because they have this foundation, again, they are more in tune with themselves, know what works for them, what doesn't work for them. They understand boundaries because they have seen it. They have seen it in their homes and in their interactions with others. And they are not afraid to take risks. And oftentimes, when you are experiencing the world, especially even as a child, just applying for maybe a scholarship, that could be viewed as a risk, because if you don't get it, then it's just reinforcing the shame that you are already telling yourself as a child who has experienced trauma. And it's just like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to go for that. I'm not going to apply to college. I'm not going to apply for that job, even though I'm not, even though I know I don't qualify for it, which people who haven't experienced trauma might be like, hey, let's just see what happens. Let's just go for it. So not to say that, again, this is every child's experience with who have experienced childhood trauma. These are just examples of how it can view your lens of how you see yourself, and you truly see yourself as a source of the trouble in your life, yourself as unworthy because of the pain that you've experienced in your life, not taking into consideration all the generational trauma that was passed on to you, that this is not, it didn't start with you. It's a book out there that's like that, it's titled that, but it didn't start with you, right? So this is years and years and years and years of family childhood trauma that has come, and now it is here within you, and you feel like it's you when really it is generational. It's a generational burden. So oftentimes children who grow up after experiencing trauma, experience it as well, this is their baseline, they continue, unbeknownst to them, they continue the what is safe for them. They know how to navigate trauma. They know survival. They know it. And so they continue this through their lives. And oftentimes experience a lot of hurt and pain. And I know that this is not a happy-go-lucky video, and I understand that, and I'm not saying also that this is something that happens all the time, but this is something that can happen and does happen for people who experience trauma. Now, childhood trauma. And so also as a therapist, things that I do see for people who experience trauma, oftentimes they numb their pain. They numb their pain because feeling their pain is too painful. And so they numb their pain, so they're not attached to their feelings. They're not in tune with how they feel and how the things that they're experiencing make them feel. They're just very instinctively, as a way of survival, used to just grinning and bearing it, pushing through it, living through it. Because unfortunately, we know life doesn't stop when a traumatic event happens, or like you got to go to school the next day. You got to go, and life continues. Life continues to go on and push through it. And this is a way that children into their adulthood continue to do so. Again, normalizing it. I know we use that word a lot, but normalizing it as a way of how to live. And so they don't have an attachment to their emotions and how they feel, and they work to protect themselves from how they feel in multiple ways, whether like emotionally numbing, just cutting themselves off, telling themselves what they experienced was not what they experienced. So they do that, and they also use substance use. Huge. It's when I have a client who's experienced trauma, I'm always looking for, hey, what we using to numb the pain. It's just to numb the pain, and also cutting, self-harm. That's another way that people numb the pain and to try to take their mind off of what they've experienced or what has been the experience of their life. And then lastly, people who have experienced trauma often have passive or active suicidal thoughts. Just of, it would just be better if I wasn't here. It'd be better if my life wasn't this way. It would just be better. Those are like passive suicidal thoughts or active suicidal thoughts, and as a way of escaping. If you and knowing their experience, you would completely understand why that is. Because if your baseline again is survival, you get tired of surviving. You get tired of always keeping your eyes on the lookout and fighting from people and protecting yourself. That's a lot of work. And so you really tend to want that to end. You get exhausted, and at the same time, you're afraid to not do it. Okay, so it's definitely internal struggle. It's an internal struggle. So I hope this is just in short. I try to keep my videos pretty short because I know, you know, we don't like long videos. I know that. So I try to keep them short, but I want to, those of you who have experienced trauma to, and who are watching this video and it may have been triggering for you, to take some moments to ground yourself, whether it might be using a sensory, using a blanket, a nice smooth blanket, and taking time to take the texture of the blanket. Also using scents that are soothing for you, whether it's lavender, eucalyptus, taking in some scents to reground yourself, and some deep breaths. Okay. Of course, we know that these videos are not a substitute for therapy, and at the same time, I want to be sensitive and responsible in knowing that I'm providing information that can be triggering and can bring up a lot of emotions. I wanted to provide this information for you because you asked. And I'll be again continuing this series on. If you have any questions, of course, comment below. The subscriber button to my channel. Okay. Thank you so much for watching. Again, I'm Alicia Jackson, LPC, and thank you so much for watching. Have a great one.